Hope is confidence that God is with you and that He will bring about His good plan for your life. I believe that hope in its fullness is possible. We need hope so much in the world today. Hope energizes us. Hope gives us a feeling of all is well. Hope brings us to the Father and through Jesus. Hope is everything, and yet in the world as I see it, so many people have lost hope. They have no hope in God. They have no hope that He will look after them. So my series is geared towards everyone who's watching. You may have hope, you may have lost hope, you may have partial hope, you may have full hope, you may have limited hope, you may have no hope. And so what I want in these sessions is to stir within you the Spirit of the Lord so that you may come out of these series saying, I have hope. And how do we maintain hope? So hope for me has been everything, and the many people I've worked with throughout my 44 years in the church, I have worked very hard to bring them to a place where they can have hope, and then they can have joy, and then they can have peace, and then they can love themselves and others, and of course our wonderful, wonderful God. So the very first episode that I'm doing today is a story about a man who lay by a pool for 38 years, but he had no hope. So I'd like to read the scripture right now and then talk about this man who had no hope. I would like now to read from John 5:1-9. Sometime after this, there was a Jewish festival, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now at the sheep pool in Jerusalem, there is a building called Bethesda in Hebrew, consisting of 5 porticos. And under these were crowds of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the water to move. For at intervals, the angel of the Lord came down into the pool, and the water was disturbed. And the first person to enter the water after this disturbance was cured of any ailments he suffered from. One man there had an illness which had lasted 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there and knew he had been in this condition for a long time, he said, "Do you want to be well again?" "Sir," replied the sick man, "I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is disturbed, and while I am still on the way, someone else gets in there before me." Jesus said, "Get up. Pick up your sleeping mat and walk." The man was cured at once, and he picked up his mat and walked away. I would like to talk about this story. I'd like you to imagine the scene. Lame people, blind people, crippled people everywhere, all waiting for the water to move, all eager to get into this water and be healed of their illness. And then we have this man who'd been there for 38 years. I wonder what his story was. I wonder whether he had friends at one stage and then those friends deserted him. I wonder if he had relatives who had tried to get him in the water and had given up. I wonder if he had got comfortable where he was. And I would like to challenge everyone listening now, because we sometimes get comfortable where we are when Jesus is actually telling us, get up, move forward, give me a chance to work in your life, don't block me out. Don't justify where you are. And that's exactly what this man did. He was justifying why he wasn't trying to get into the pool. It's the Jesus who knows everything about us. He knows our beginnings, he knows our inner heart, he knows our thoughts, he knows everything. So he knew that this man needed a push. So he said to him, do you want to get well again? And I believe that's what he's saying to people everywhere right now. Do you want to get well again? And I guess the first step in moving towards healing is to acknowledge that you need it. So Jesus said, do you want to get well again? And here's the man very complacently giving a very, in his mind, justifiable excuse. Well, Jesus, you see, it's like this. I really can't get to the water because I have no one to put me into the water. Where are you stuck? Where is it you are saying, I can't move from here? I tried and it didn't work. I was let down. I can't trust anyone. And I don't know if I can trust God. And he continued, this man, by the way, and he said, you see, Jesus, while I try to get to the pool, and I wonder how hard he tried, when I try to get to the pool, somebody gets in there before me. And so the story of this man resonates with me because in my work as a spiritual director with thousands and thousands of people, I will quite often challenge people. Why is it that you are finding it hard to enter into intimacy with God? Why is it you are finding it hard to surrender? Why is it you are finding it hard to let go? And it's interesting for me because as a spiritual director, I look quite often at two very main points. Number one, if I let Jesus get too close, if I trusted in him and hoped in him, what might he ask of me? If I surrendered to Jesus, if I really let him in, he may not like what he sees. And yet Jesus knows everything about us. There isn't anything about us he does not know. And so his words to us right now are, do you want to get well again? And I need to share now some of my story because I lost hope. Many, many years ago, I asked God to send me a husband who would understand me the way I was on the inside. I knew I was broken. I knew I needed someone to understand me, and this man came into my life. What I didn't realize until this dreadful event happened for us was that there was a medical condition that actually prevents him from looking at consequences of certain decisions. So I was pregnant with my second child, and we were in a country town and very due to give birth, and the doctor was worried because I was getting to be very close, and he just felt that something needed to be done. And so my husband was booked to come up to Perth for a conference. And so on the Friday morning, he took me to hospital. He said he would be back on the Friday night. So the doctor induced me, they break the waters, and I was just lying there waiting for my husband to come back and feeling very alone. Anyway, I went into labour, and then the labour would cut out. And then after a while, I'd go into labour again, and then the labour would cut out. This went on all that day, all Friday. He didn't come home. They waited for the husband to come to give permission for a cesarean, and he hadn't come. But it got to the stage where they worried about my life, and so they got an emergency anaesthetist in. They rushed me into hospital. As they were about to take me in, my husband arrived, and I said, "Where have you been? Where have you been?" And he said, "I've been at a conference." They did an emergency cesarean, and then took me. I woke up in my room, and they said, "You've had a little baby girl. She looks like you." And I was so excited. I said, "That's lovely." A few hours later, they came in and they said, and the doctor had tears in his eyes, and he came in the middle of the night and he said, "We don't think she's going to make the night. She just can't struggle anymore." And I remember weeping and weeping, and my husband wanting to console me, and I didn't want anything to do with him. It was like he had betrayed me, he hadn't come back. I lost hope in God, because God sent me that man. And if that man didn't stand beside me while I was having our baby, how could I trust God and how could I have hope in God that he would ever do anything good for me? And then I made a vow that some of you might have made in your journey, and this is the vow. Nobody has ever looked after me. I will now look after myself. And God got pushed into that. And do you know what that is called? Independence from God. So eventually I started to walk in the way of the world, trying to find happiness. You cannot find happiness in the world without God. We did have another baby. My husband took them to church and I went the way of the world. But you know, it made me sick. In Proverbs 13:12, we are told, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And can I tell you, I was actually sick in many ways. A lot of the appointments for doctors, we have been told through research, comes from emotional, psychological problems. And so I wandered, not 38 years, by the pool of life, maybe 7, but I wandered away from God. So I remember the moment well when I came back to God, and I'm hoping today as I talk to you and you hear the pain of my story, that wherever you may be on your journey, right now you may be able to say, I am here, God, I hear you, and I want to come back. So I was in hospital and I was having surgery, and my brother, who has passed and gone to be with the Lord now, he came to see me and he said a few words that changed my life. And this is what he said: Norma, God won't wait forever. Now we know that God will wait forever. He's the hound of heaven and he will wait for us. He will wait for us. What I heard when my brother said, the thing is, Norma, God won't wait forever, this is what happened for me. I felt the urgency of God for me to return to him. It was as though he was saying to me, and I believe he's saying to many of you today, do you want to be well again? That intense sense of God's love that filled that hospital room, it began to heal my relationship with him. And it began to heal eventually my relationship with my husband. And I remember responding in that moment. There was a little bird outside the hospital window sitting on a roof. And I remember saying to God, do you really want me? If you want me, I give myself to you. I'm bankrupt in every which way. Emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, physically, I'm just bankrupt, God. But if you want me, I give myself to you. And that began the journey homeward and the journey towards hope. So can I ask you right now, if you are willing in this moment and you feel the need within you to go for the first time into God and surrender, or to go deeper into God and surrender, but God is waiting for you because he's a gentleman. He will not force himself on any of us. And that is very particularly for someone right now who has had people forced on them. God is a gentleman. He never will force himself. He knocks on the door of your heart and he waits for you to open it. What is hope? Hope is a theological virtue. I remember asking a priest 40-something years ago when I first came back to the church, Father, what is hope? And he put it very simply. This is what he said: hope is expecting good things from God in the future. Well, the man 38 years by the pool didn't expect good things from God in the future. And I, after the death of my baby and my husband not coming back, I didn't expect any good from God in the future. However, God has a way to transform our thinking. And Jeremiah 29:11 became the absolute foundation of my recovery. And one translation says this: God says, I know the plans I have for you, plans for peace and not disaster, plans for hope in your final outcome. Another translation says, I plan to prosper you, not harm you, to give you a hope and a future. Now, I believe that we need to practice God's thoughts until they become our thoughts. And so I would say repeatedly, you have a good plan for me. You have a plan full of hope. You have a good future for me. You're going to prosper me and not to harm me. And so I began to open up to the blessings and the promises of God. Colossians 1:4 tells us, when Paul's writing to the church there, he says this, I've heard of your faith. And then in the Amplified Bible, in parentheses, it says this, the leaning of your entire human personality on him in absolute trust on his wisdom, his power, and his goodness. People know the wisdom of God. They know the power of God. But the people I have worked with, because of human intervention in their lives, don't always believe in the goodness of God because they haven't had that portrayed for them. I would like to read to you now from the Bible about the goodness of God. Psalm 34:8. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. Psalm 107:1. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Psalm 117, verse 68. You are good and do good. Teach me your statutes. Psalm 27:13. I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. A few steps that I will share with you to break any patterns of thinking within you so that you can open up to this amazing love and this amazing hope that God offers you. First of all, if you want to be healed, do you want to be well again? No excuses. You cannot make any excuses to stay stuck where you are. I've tried and it didn't work. I put myself out there and I wasn't accepted. I tried to love and I was rejected. I tried to pray and it didn't work. I did my best at my job, someone else got the promotion. I've tried to save, but I just can't save. My money just disappears. Excuses, excuses, excuses. So, number one, we can't make any more excuses. Number two, we've got to forgive those that let us down. I had to forgive my husband. It wasn't easy in the beginning because I wanted him to pay. And you are not going to be healed and free if you want someone to pay. So I'm asking right now that if you have someone you need to forgive, the choice is yours. And it's in the will. And this is what happens. You need to say to God, I choose to forgive. And then you allow God to do a healing process within you. And he will. I've heard it said that to harbor unforgiveness is to swallow poison expecting someone else to die. Unforgiveness is absolute acid to the body. It corrodes us. And so forgiveness is number one. So I said to God, I want to be able to forgive my husband. And those of you who have hurt others, everyone does the best with what they have at the time. Everyone does their best with what they have at the time. And as we grow in wisdom, stature, and grace, we are given more and we can make better choices. So no excuses. Choose to forgive. And here's the really, really important one. Get to know God. Choose to want to get to know God at a deep level. Let him into your life. Let him into your comings and your goings. Let him into all the struggles. Let him into the wonderful things. I have a way of talking to God now that people have a little bit of a laugh over, but I don't want to move without him. It's constantly bringing him in. It's called sacramentality. It's finding God in everything and every place, everywhere. Because that's where he is. Everywhere, in everything, all the time. It's just that we block him out. You know, getting to know God means, I believe, setting aside special time to talk to him. That's been my way. Not everyone feels that's their way, but personal prayer has been my way. Sacraments, the grace of God and hope is poured into you. The theological virtues of faith, hope and love are poured into us every time we go to a sacrament. It's all there for you. The healing is all there. What has to happen is the will needs to change. It's the choices that will bring us happiness or unhappiness. I would like now to pray with you. And I would like you to close your eyes and I would like you just to imagine that Jesus is standing there in front of you. and he's asking you, do you want to be well again? And if you have said yes, I want you to visualize Jesus putting out his hand, and I want you to take his hand and let him pull you to your feet. And if you can, let him just hug you as I pray. Lord, bring into this person the ability to forgive through your grace, the ability to know you more through your grace, and the ability to have no more excuses through your grace. But above all, Lord, right now, flood them with hope. From the top of their head to their toes, every moment they've lived, every cell in their body, filled with this amazing grace. And I believe you're doing that, Jesus. In your precious name, I pray. I would like to say thank you so much for tuning in. And can I invite you to my next session about hope, hope lost, hope found, hope evident, hope maintained. I won't tell you which one it is, but please join me for my next session, next episode on hope. This is Norma Woodcock saying, God bless you, and thank you for listening.
You can't always.
This is the death.
Remarkably empty.
Turn back towards God. Rise up.